So the real purpose of this problem is to just show you that within process costing, we have typically departments within an organization through which products move logically from one department to the next, and we accumulate costs by these departments, and then the costs then have to move with those products as they work their way through our process and are eventually completed. And so we have a blending department or process, an encapsulating process, and a bottling process. And I've got down here, I just put a little visual together to show you, this might seem fairly obvious, but I think it'll make sense as we go through and look at journal entries and costs to see that we have to start here. First you blend the product, then you encapsulate it, and then finally you bottle it. So, okay, I've also got a little schedule here because the first part of the problem says, tell me the costs that were transferred out of each department, assuming no ending WIP inventory, so we don't have anything left over. In other words, everything goes from blending, it's all completed, it all moves to encapsulating, nothing's left, and then it all moves to the bottling area. Okay, so I've just summarized each process as it was given to us in the problem right here. So we have materials costs and conversion costs, which are the labor and the overhead. So the costs added in the blending department are both of those items added together, and that would be true of the encapsulating. And the bottling is the costs that were added in that process are the two added, the materials and the conversion costs added together. So costs transferred in for the bottling, or the blending rather, is nothing. We didn't bring any costs in from another department. But we blended everything together, all $15,000 worth of material and labor and overhead, and we're going to transfer all $15,000 out of this department. So it moves out of this department and it moves into the encapsulating area. And in the encapsulating area we add $7,500 plus we transferred in this $15,000. We're going to transfer out all of the pills or whatever it is that's been encapsulated. So all the costs, the stuff we've added plus what's been transferred in gets transferred out because there's no ending WIP. So we get to the last step in the process, the bottling process. We're going to add bottles and other labor and overhead items of $7,500 plus we've brought in $22,500, and the cost transferred out, remember there's no ending work in process, is $30,000. That's going to work its way to finished goods. So again, that flow, we moved all the costs from blending to encapsulating, from encapsulating to bottling. Now let's look at what that would look like from the second requirement here, the journal entries. So the journal entries I've broken into two steps. One is we're going to add the material, the labor, and the overhead, which are these items here. And when we do that, they get moved into this work in process account. And it would make sense to create a work in process account for each process. So when we get to the blending department, we've added $15,000 in material, labor, and overhead. So that's my work in process that's added during the period. And we would have credited the conversion costs, the labor, and the overhead for $7,500, and my materials for $7,500. So again, we'll watch this thing walk its way through the system. We would have $15,000, so some of it would be material that we added, $7,500, and then the conversion cost of $7,500 are also added to blending. So we've just increased the work in process. We're going to also increase our encapsulating costs. Again, we're only working at the material and the conversion costs right now. So my work in process goes up by $7,500, and that was due to $1,400 of materials. If I could put it in the right spot, $1,400, and $6,100 of conversion costs. So again, let's copy this. We have materials of $1,400 and conversion costs of $6,100. So now we've got work in process added there. And what we'll get to later is we'll pull all of the work in process out and it'll get moved into the work in process encapsulating. Okay, bottling, last one. We're going to take and we're going to add $7,500 because we added $4,500 in conversion costs and $3,000 in materials. So for that WIP account, material was $33,000 and conversion of $4,500. Okay, great. Now we have to actually do the physical transferring, right? All this stuff was completed in blending, so it needs to move out of blending and move into encapsulating. So you would increase encapsulating by the entire amount because the entire amount moved out. And work in process blending It's not 7,500. It's all of it, 15,000. And the blending amount gets reduced. So the accounting is fairly straightforward if you can keep the debits and credits straight. You take out a blending, all of it, and it gets moved from the blending department to the encapsulating department. So we would have $15,000 from blending. Okay, so now in the encapsulating department we've got all these costs, and they need to move their way out of the encapsulating department into the bottling department. And the amounts are the 1,400 plus the 6,100 plus the 15,000. 22,500 comes out of encapsulating, and it moves into the bottling. Great. So now, again, remember there's no work in process, which makes this problem fairly straightforward. Lastly, everything's moved out of work in process and moves its way into finished goods. So the finished goods increases by 30,000, which is all these costs. Work in process bottling reduces by 30,000. And there we go. We've walked all the way through both requirements here. And so that was the physical flow, stuff moving from department to department and then to finished goods, and then it'd make its way into cost of goods sold if we took it one step further and we don't know it was sold. So that's process, very, very basic overview of process costing and how things move from one department to the other along with the appropriate journal entries.